What is up, you guys? Teller checking in for UFC 295. This event taking place at Madison Square Garden in New York City that obviously adds to the energy of this card. But when it comes to the matchmaking, I really believe the UFC did an amazing job. And I'm not talking about just the big time fights. I'm talking about the preliminary fights. I mean, these fights that were made were perfectly done. I'm very excited for this card. I feel that this card is going to deliver from a betting perspective, from an entertainment perspective. I'm very excited for it, as you guys can tell. Now, I am recording this Friday morning, so I can't tell you how I did for UFC Brazil, but I feel very confident. My one play for the card, as of right now, I have one play. We're going to be watching the weigh-ins here in a second, maybe a small added play, but we have one big play that we're targeting, and I feel very confident it will be another profitable event. You guys know I will have the recap of UFC Brazil posted here on the channel once that all takes place. Other than that, I won't hold you up. You guys know how we do it here. We got the timestamps. You guys can jump to any single fight you want to. We've been very, very hot with our bets in this last quarter of the year. I definitely look to continue that into this event. So if you want to work with me, do not be shy to reach out to me, whether it's email, shoot me a DM on Instagram or Twitter. That's all scrolling below. Go catch me on Instagram at MMAFortuneTeller_. I'm putting out some fire memes these days. And catch me on Twitter at the MMA Teller, where you guys can always keep up to date with me and see what my thoughts are on a day-to-day or week-to-week basis. And before we jump into the first fight, it's worth mentioning, of course, this card initially supposed to be headlined by Jon Jones and Stipe Miocic. You guys know what went on. Jon Jones gets injured, pulls out. Stipe Miocic wants nothing to do with Pavlovich or Aspinall. So now we have the intern heavyweight championship on the line here. And, what a matchup it is, in my opinion. Sergey Pavlovich and Tom Aspinall, you combine the talents of both men, and I think that it's about as high caliber of a heavyweight matchup as we ever seen. I compare it with maybe, prime Cain Velasquez and Junior Dos Santos back in the day. Just the combined talent is ridiculous, so we don't lose too much there. Of course, we all wanted to see Stipe versus Jones, but what a perfect matchup to step in there as a replacement. So when you compare it to like a UFC 294 event where we lost actually two of the top fights, we lost the initial main event and co-main event spots. The difference is obviously both of these fighters weren't training for this date, and they had a little bit of extra time to prepare. So it's not like one fighter had a major edge, whereas Alexander Volkanovski stepped in on short notice. I feel Islam Makhachev had a major advantage there, and Kamaru Usman showed up against Khamzat Chimaev, but you could say he had his back against the wall, also taking that fight on a very short notice against an opponent that was training for that date, going up in weight. So this card a little bit different. Even though we lose that big main event slot on this card, I still feel it doesn't really do any type of damage to this event, and I'm pumped for it. So let's go jump into the first fight now.
Welcome to the show, this the MMA Fortune Teller. Yeah.
The MMA Fortune Teller.
The teller.
Kicking the card off, we head over to the flyweight division. You guys know I love the flyweight division, and Steve Erceg now ranked 14th in this division. What a great addition he seems to be. What he did in his UFC debut in his last fight is definitely something to speak of. Taking a short notice fight against a guy in David Dvorak, a ranked fighter, showing up and delivering the way he did, landing a big head kick in that fight. Overall, I had him winning every round. One judge did have him winning 30-27. The other two did score at 29-28. I thought that he basically won every round as I just rewatched that fight. The one round was somewhat close, but still a big-time performance. He now takes on the youngster Alessandro Costa. Now, Costa had a similar opportunity when he made his UFC debut, as he had a debut fight against a ranked fighter and Amir Albalzi, a very proven fighter. He came up short. He had some flashes within that fight, but he eventually was broken down in that fight and finished in the third round. And he was landed on a couple times throughout that fight. You can argue that Amir Albalzi is a little bit more of a game opponent than David Dvorak potentially, but do understand that Dvorak is a legitimate fighter. Okay, now Costa bounced back with a big victory where he was able to finish Jimmy Flick. And Jimmy Flick, there's some similarities between Jimmy Flick and Steven Erceg. Some similarities. We'll talk about those in a second. But just understand that Jimmy Flick retired from the sport of MMA for a while. He made his return against Charles Johnson, and he was finished in that fight in a similar fashion that Costa finished him up as well, with the ground and pound. And you just got to wonder where Flick's mind's at, okay? I don't believe that Flick has looked good since making to the return to the sport. There was obviously a reason why he stepped away. I know he was dabbling with doing some MMA betting stuff on the side, doing his little Flicks picks and whatnot. He was stepping on the teller's toes, and he realized that he needed to stay in his lane. But I just don't feel that his head was fully in it, or has been fully in it since he's made his return. So I don't know if I put that much stock into that victory for Costa, even though Costa looked good, landing some nice leg kicks. To this matchup here, Erceg is a jiu-jitsu guy, I would say first and foremost, but he is showing that his striking is really coming around. He's a very accurate striker. He's not necessarily a striker that's real light on his feet and explosive and whatnot. He's a little plotty, but he's very accurate with his strikes. He's going to have a little bit of a size advantage here as well, and that's why I am leaning towards Erceg's way. I think that he's just going to be one of those game fighters that just continuously overachieves until people start to really understand what he's about, and until he gains that respect. And again, I mentioned he has a nasty jiu-jitsu game. You take a look at his 10 victories, 6 of them by way of submission. He's going to have about a 1.5 inch reach advantage. He's almost 4 inches taller. He has the more natural size advantage here. And again, Costa is a fiery fighter, just 27 years old, gets in work with fighters like Diego Lopes, who we will be talking about later, who's been looking phenomenal. But I have to lean Erceg here, based on all the things we talked about. I have to lean Erceg here. Costa has a nasty jiu-jitsu game as well. His striking has grown. Again, the same can be said about Erceg. Some similarities here. Steve Erceg, I think that he's going to start to impress us. And also, even before he had the UFC debut victory, he had a couple big moments kicking off his pro career. The submission victory he had against Shannon Ross. Shannon Ross at the time, wasn't as damaged and whatnot. He was the champion over there at Eternal MMA. Went in there, submitted him in the first round. That was a big fight. I believe that took place in Australia. And Erceg has been pretty game, just with that one loss early in his career. Costa, 3 losses scattered around. He's been knocked out twice. I think it is reasonable that Steven Erceg lands another accurate shot here and damages Costa, potentially knocks him out. We've seen Costa take damage like that before. Maybe he hurts him and then goes down to the mat and pulls off a sub, takes the back, pulls off a rear naked choke. But I'm leaning a little bit more towards a TKO, landing a big shot there. So we'll see how that goes. Let's take a look at the betting line. Again, this was a newly added match, as Steven Erceg was initially supposed to be taking on Matt Schnell. Costa taking this fight on short notice. Erceg opened up at a -200 line on Bet Online, and the line is going the other way, towards Costa's way. Erceg is now a -170, so if you're liking Erceg, you want to be sitting on this line, and maybe you can catch it at -150, 160. I don't know if it will dip that much, but I like Erceg here. And, for those of you that like Costa, you see some value on him. Again, you could have grabbed Costa as high as a +170 dog. He's now a +145 dog. If some of you guys are on that side of things, I understand. At least you're getting that dog tag next to him, and he's looked pretty fiery. But I am standing on the side where I say that Erceg is going to be a fighter that continues to impress us for a little bit here. Over to the bantamweight division, where we have Kang taking on John Castañeda. Both these fighters have been in the UFC for a little bit of time now. They've had their ups and downs. I like this matchup here. I think that the loser, although they not saying they're necessarily on track to be cut, but the loser of this fight, they're going to be pretty much knocked to the curb there. I mean, they'll get another opportunity, but they'll take a lot of steam out of what they're trying to do, because they've already had some hiccups. Both of these fighters just need to get it going. They really need to string off more and more victories to get that real respect in the division here. Kang is 36 years old. He's not young, but I would argue to you that he's coming off the best performance that we've seen from him yet, where he went out there and defeated Christian Quinoez. Quinoez is a young fighter that's not necessarily proven, even though he has a pretty established record. He has a good amount of fights, just not against a lot of upper level talent. But the performance that Kang had out there, showcasing the striking and eventually getting the submission as well, I thought that it was a big time performance for him. His striking is very, very technical and slick. I believe he has that Taekwondo background. The kicks are coming at you left and right. His boxing is coming right down the pipe. He's very quick, good footwork. And I think that's going to be key in this matchup here, because if he can keep this fight standing, which Castañeda has definitely shown he's more than willing to strike it out with the opposition. I think that if Kyung Kang can keep this fight standing, I'm going to give him the edge in the striking department, and I think that he can win this fight. John Castañeda, we could talk about some of the work he's done recently. Coming off the decision victory over Gafarov. Gafarov just finished within seconds. You guys know I faded him as I had Saad Nurmagomedov to defeat him there. So some of that Gafarov stock drops a little bit there. Before that, he was knocked out by Daniel Santos with that nasty knee. You could say the submission victory over Miles Johns was probably his biggest victory, right? Because the Eddie Wineland fight, Eddie Wineland was so old, lost to Nathaniel Wood, submitted Marcelo Rojo. I don't really consider him a UFC caliber opponent. Split decision loss to Jose Alday. That's the Mexican version of Jose Aldo. If you don't believe me, go click on him, check him out. Alday, actually a legit fighter, fought on Dana White's Contender Series and whatnot, but still, I believe that Castañeda has been overhyped coming into a lot of his fights, especially when you take a look at the betting lines that have been next to his name. I don't know why he gets so much respect. He's coming into this fight as the favorite once again, and I disagree with the line here. So, Kang opened up on my bookie as a plus 102, and he's now at plus 125. So it seems as of right now, people are disagreeing with me. The action's coming in on Castañeda. I think that if you're taking Castañeda, yeah, he'll throw some big shots out there on the feet, but good luck outpointing Kyung Kang there. And I think that you better be banking that Castañeda really goes to the grappling, tries to get some control time, maybe try to slip in a head and arm triangle choke. Let me, of course, bring up Kang's recent fight, disappointing fight where he did take his most recent loss. I do need to warn you guys about this, where he was defeated by Hani Yaya, and that fight, he was controlled for almost 2 rounds. Okay, so that is the red flag. Okay, as of recently. Also, you take a look at all these victories he's had as of recently. Against lower level fighters, right? And the fact that 2 of them were split decisions too, against Brandon Davis and Pingyun Liu. Yeah, that wasn't the best look for him. But, I thought that he looked so good in his last 2 fights. So that's the real reason why I'm banking on him here. I know he's 36 years old, but I think that there's been some major growth, especially with the striking. He's really using that striking background. He's getting comfortable in the cage using that there. So I think he can outpoint Castañeda. But if Castañeda uses a heavy grappling attack, that is what you need to be worried about. And I think that's why Castañeda is coming in as the favorite. They feel that Kang has shown some deficiency there. And but all in all, one second here before we get to the betting line, let me just say, Kang has showcased a 70% takedown defensive rate. Castañeda with a 38% takedown defensive accuracy. It's not like he's just been some wild Dagestani guy lifting dudes up, slamming them on their back, as has Castañeda been. So, it might not be that easy for him to get the fight down to the mat, and I think that I will take Kang to outstrike him here. So let's get in on a dog early on this card. I know you guys love to see the dogs getting chosen. I have some more dogs coming your guys' way in a little bit. But right now, you can get Kang at a plus 125 line. If you like him there, you might want to sit on it. Maybe it continues to go that way. But be careful because you might see it dip right back and the line close a little bit more evenly. But I like the dog value on Kang. I think that he outstrikes Castañeda, and we have seen Castañeda finish before as of recently, and Kang can throw some nasty strikes his way. Watch out for the head kick. Watch out for the crisp boxing, maybe breaking him down. All in all, though, I think the fight plays out pretty closely, but I edge Kang to win a decision with the slick striking and maybe a split decision victory, which we've seen him have quite a few in the past. Settle down, boys. We're headed over to the women's strawweight division. We got Tabatha Ricci taking on Lupita Godinez, the number 10 and number 13th ranked strawweight fighters. I love this matchup. I love the fact that they just have so many similarities and certain stylistic aspects of their game that are going to clash as well. The wrestling of Godinez versus the jiu-jitsu of Ricci. Both fighters. Their striking has developed so much over the years. I love this matchup. I absolutely love this matchup as well as the next fight. I talked earlier about some of the preliminary fights, just having some really nice matchups being made. This fight and the next fight I was specifically talking about. I've been very high on both these girls. It's worth bringing up. Of course, I had a max play on Lupita Godinez just 2 fights ago. And, of course, she delivered for me, so there's always a great amount of respect for her there when she went out there, defeated Emily Ducote. She had some moments where she slowed down a little bit, but she, I shouldn't say slowed down. She was continuously coming forward, but her defense was lacking a little bit at times, ate a couple of shots. All in all, though, she was in complete control of that fight, came through. And then she goes into the Elise Reed fight where she just absolutely was in Terminator mode and just beat beat her down horrifically, just dominated that fight. And when that version of Lupi shows up in the cage, she's one of the best fighters in the division, right? But we have seen some mixed versions of her in the cage, right? Of course, the Angela Hill fight was a tough one for her. It's hard to forget the Luana Carolina fight and the Jessica Penne fight. That was a long time ago, though. That was back in 2021. That was her UFC debut. It's still a little hard to forget some of those performances. Of course, mixed in with some big dominant performance as well. But here's the thing, man. Tabatha Ricci is the real deal. She's an absolute stud athlete with a phenomenal jiu-jitsu base. And if Godinez thinks she's going to go in there and just use that muscle and that wrestling ability just to rip her down to the mat and start going in for ground and pound, I don't think it's going to play out like that. I think that she's going to run into some trouble. I think that Ricci is very, very slick with her grappling skills and could eventually counter her or put Lupi in maybe a compromising situation. Maybe it's something that we haven't seen before down on the mat. I'd be interested to see if Ricci can get on top of Godinez and see how Godinez looks on her back. All in all, typically I favor, the wrestler over the jiu-jitsu player, but with this matchup, I'm feeling that I feel a little bit more confident with Ricci overall in the grappling department. Now, Godinez, like I said, has looked like a Terminator even on the feet, just marching forward, throwing heavy boxing shots and whatnot. Ricci has been looking very slick with her boxing. I'm kind of favoring Ricci's striking as well. So the way I look at this fight, I see this Mack truck and Godinez who's going to look to come forward and whatnot. And then I see this little Maserati in Tabatha Ricci that I think is going to be able to maneuver and swerve around a little bit here and manage this fight. So if you guys feel my energy right now, yes, I am taking the baby shark Tabatha Ricci. I've been very impressed with some of her performances since making her UFC debut. When I say her UFC debut, of course, it's worth noting that she was knocked out against Manon Fiorot. Manon Fiorot had a major size advantage on her, and she's one of the best fighters in the game. But since then, she's on a 4-fight winning streak and has just looked better and better and better out there. Okay, really just dominating Jessica Penne. If you want to throw some fighter math out there, Jessica Penne stole a split decision over Godinez. I know it was just there's a lot of moving parts there, so you don't want to look at it like that necessarily. But Baby Shark looked phenomenal against Jillian Robertson. Jillian Robertson's an absolute stud. Polyana Viana's a very underrated fighter as well. I think that Tabatha Ricci is the real deal. You got the Brazilian versus the Mexican. Both these fighters, talented, cute. I love this fight, man. I'll definitely be tuned in. I'll have the popcorn tossed up in the air, catching it with my mouth, maybe smoking a cigar as I watch this one. So let's go take a look at the betting line and see what we're talking about here. All right, we see that Tabatha Ricci is the underdog here. Currently on my bookie, she's a plus 130, opened up as a plus 132, dipped all the way to a plus 146 with action coming in on Godinez, but then the line kind of correcting itself and trending more back towards Ricci's way, which I expect this line. I would expect this line to close a little bit more evenly. People need to put some respect on Ricci's name. I think the more people dive into this fight, they're going to understand it's more of a coin flip type of fight. If anything, I'll lean towards the Ricci side. Now, so again, I'm edging Ricci. I see more value on the dog odds on her. You take a look at Godinez's 3 losses, all via decision. She's shown to be very, very hard to finish and get out of there. Even though Tabatha Ricci is a nasty jiu-jitsu player and all that, the majority of her victories coming by way of decision. I got to lean a decision victory here for Ricci, but I would not be shocked if Ricci actually is able to get in on a neck or something like that and pull off a sub, but I lean towards a decision victory for the Baby Shark here. The winner of this fight gets some major momentum behind them and starts to look their way towards the top of the women's strawweight division. In the lightweight division, this is absolutely going to be a clash here. Nazim Sadykhov taking on Slava Borshchev. Slava Claus. You guys know it's almost that time of year as we are in November now, cruising our way to December. Slava Claus going to bring some gifts to people throwing action on him for this fight. I don't know about that. I mean, let's dive into this matchup here. You guys know Slava Claus has some serious power. He showcased that on Dana White's Contender Series with the big knockout victory that he had, where he went out there and starched Chris Duncan, which you guys know Chris Duncan has really rebounded and since that loss and has shown to be a formidable opponent in the division, which we knew that even going into the fight. At least I knew that. Chris Duncan is a good fighter, putting in a lot of work over at American Top Team. He's a tough dude and could do a little bit of it all. After that, he gets a knockout victory over Dakota Bush in his UFC debut. And then he loses to Mark Diakese and Mike Davis. Now, again, I am filming this Friday morning, so I can't talk about Mark Diakese's most recent performance on the UFC Brazil card. But Diakese went out there, strictly used his wrestling and grappling to get the job done, exploiting the grappling of Slava Klaus. You could say Mike Davis did the same thing. And then Slava bounced back with a huge victory where he was able to get that second round knockout over Mahashate, once again showcasing the power that he possesses. Remember, he has the kickboxing background, has been training kickboxing since a very young age. And if anybody's going to go tit for tat with him on the feet, they're going to be in for some trouble. Now, Nazim Sadykhov is a fighter that is more than willing to engage with you on the feet. This guy is as tough as nails. He's a performer, a very talented fighter, but this is a fighter that will go out there and look to put on a show. He'll look to go out there and knock you clean out. Has that southpaw stance, throws heavy overhand lefts, and he can do a little bit of it all. But I think that if there's some danger in this matchup, it is that he's a very mentally tough type of fighter, and I think that he will exchange some striking situations, and there's potential that Slava Klaus can land a big shot on him. But overall, I gotta say that Nazim Sadykhov is the more complete fighter. Been training over there with Matt Serra for some time. Serra Longo MMA, a bunch of studs up there, and Nazim Sadykhov is the more complete fighter. The performance that he just had against Terrence McKinney was phenomenal. Weathered the storm early on and then used his grappling to get the W over a fighter in Terrence McKinney, who is a very, very dangerous fighter and a very polished fighter. Now, defensively, McKinney has some flaws, but offensively, McKinney has phenomenal wrestling. He's a big knockout threat, and Sadykhov weathered all that in the first round and showed some real mental toughness to go out there and just completely flip the script on McKinney there. In his UFC debut, he had that TKO victory over Evan Elder due to a cut. Now, that was a very close fight. If you go back to the judges' scorecards, if he doesn't get that cut, that could potentially have been an L for him. It's hard to say, though. We still had some time in that fight to take place. I mean, we had a whole third round set to take place, but Evan Elder looked to be a little bit fresher there. There was a very high pace in that fight. I know because I had some action on Nazim Sadykhov in that fight. If you remember, I gave that free play out to you guys here on YouTube. We had the video. We cashed on that. But I wasn't overly impressed with what he went out there and did. Evan Elder, a tough dude, but still. So, how do I see this fight playing out? I got to side with Nazim Sadykhov. He's just a more complete fighter, and I expect him to show some kind of wits here and go to the grappling where he's going to have that edge. If he's going to be a knucklehead, he's going to go out there and just look to bang it out with Slava Klaus. Do not be surprised if Slava lands a big shot. And it's also worth noting, Slava has extensively been working on his grappling and his takedown defense. And, he's been getting it in with, Team Alpha Male and whatnot, training with some of the best of them over the years. He understands what part of his game he needs to clean up. So he's 31 years old. He's cruising into his prime. Do not be surprised when you see a better version of him. But as we go into this matchup, the smart side, to be on the smart side of things, you have to be on Nazim Sadykhov. I will say Nazim Sadykhov gets a decision victory. This fight, it could be a little bit of a barn burner at points and times, but don't be surprised if Nazim slows the pace down later on as things are grueling and whatnot, and wants to cruise his way to a W and just kind of slow the pace down and uses the wrestling, and the fight's not as exciting maybe in the second or third rounds. I think there is an avenue for the fight to play out like that, and it's the fight game. If you're smart, that's the avenue I would go. You want to go for the path of least resistance. All right, so Nazim Sadykhov opened as a -159. Dip down to we're talking about minuscule movement here. This is all magnified to a -161, back to a -160. We're talking little minuscule points here. Nazim Sadykhov is essentially a -160, and we haven't seen barely any movement as of right now. It's not necessarily that steep of a line if you like him and you like having that grappling edge in your pocket. Also knowing that if the fight takes place in the feet, Nazim could throw down as well. Might be a lot more even than some people think, even though Slava's dangerous there. Sadykhov might land a nasty shot as well. Maybe he gets a surprise knockout. But the line could be steeper. I could see this line as a -180 for Nazim Sadykhov potentially. So possible value there. It's a little bit of a tricky fight with the knockout power that Slava possesses. But give me Nazim Sadykhov to win a decision, reaching into his back pocket, using the wrestling in the second and third rounds, and kind of just avoiding that knockout shot from Slava in the first. Another Serra Longo product on the card here, and Dennis Buzukja, I believe the Albanian fighter, or at least of Albanian descent, taking on Jamall Emmers, the American Jamall Emmers, a very under-the-radar type of fighter. Hasn't been the most active over the years, but a very talented fighter. He does a lot of things very well. A phenomenal kickboxer, a great boxer, pumps the jab out there so sharp, has grappling skills. Now, he's coming off of a loss that was a bit of a robbery, if you ask me. Now, check this out. All right, this was one of my rare type of events where I was drinking early, and I keep it real with you guys. I never advise to do this. I usually never dabble with the live betting and whatnot. I was just messing around, chasing some money early on in the car, drinking early, and I threw some money on Jack Jenkins. If you guys remember, it was about the third or fourth fight, kicking that early card off. It was an early card, and Jack Jenkins, the line was ridiculous next to his name. There was definitely value on him going into that fight. But as the fight was progressing, I felt Jamall Emmers was definitely winning the fight. And as I looked over at the live odds, I believe as the second round was ending, I was able to cash out on Jack Jenkins because he was so much of an underdog that I was able to cash out with profits. And I said, hey, I'm taking the profits there. I mean, he's on his way to losing this fight. He's already down the first two rounds. I think that Emmers arguably won the third round as well. And somehow the judges gave that fight to Jack Jenkins. So, it was kind of frustrating. Even though I made a little bit of money on that fight, if I would have just kept the Jenkins play, I would have made a substantial amount of money as he was a big dog. But I got my redemption on Jack Jenkins as I faded him in his last fight, as I had some dog action. What an event that was against where Chipe Mariscal used that judo throw to dislocate his shoulder or whatnot. Anyways, back to this matchup here. Jamall Emmers was robbed. It's a damn shame. I know he's hungry coming into this matchup. Before that fight, he absolutely styled on Hussein Ashkabab. Him and his brother recently were arrested. I mean, they were tying people up, holding people hostage, robbing people, doing home invasions. Those guys are some nut jobs. And, Ashkabab had an extremely padded record. I don't care how promising he looked coming into the UFC after that performance. We understand that he was a complete fraud. I truly believe that. If you look at the way his striking what was showcased in the cage, this is a guy that's been training at Tiger Muay Thai. He was throwing his shots all the way from New York to California. I mean, shots coming completely east and west. They were so telegraphed, and Emmers styled on him. Now, he was submitted by Pat Sabatini. Pat Sabatini is an absolute stud. Also a loss to Giga Chikazi. You're talking about some of the cream of the crop in the division, so understand that the losses are very legitimate. I think Emmers is the real deal. I'm high on him. He's 34 years old. The time is now, without a doubt. I want to see him make one little run in this division, try to get a rank next to his name. Dennis Buzukja, very tough fighter, 26 years old. I'll make it quick. He has some fight-ending ability. But you know what? Let's not be too harsh on him with his performance in his last fight. It was on short notice, and he did look to be a little winded in that fight against Sean Woodson, and eventually what was really picked apart as the fight progressed, right? He was looking for these big shots. Woodson was playing with him out there, but he did take that fight on short notice, so let's give him a little bit of a break. I think he'll be more prepared for this opportunity. And since the he had the loss to Melsik Bagdasaryan on Dana White's Contender Series back in 2020, strung off a bunch of victories on the regional scene over at Ring of Combat, got another opportunity, yes, he did. He did have another opportunity on Contender Series against Kelio Romero, I believe the Puerto Rican fighter. Got another decision victory, did not get a contract, but again, strung off a couple victories on the regional scene, had that debut opportunity. He's still young, a lot of room for growth. As of right now, Emmers is the much more polished fighter. Give me Jamall Emmers to land that jab at will, mix things up, get on top of Buzukja against the cage, maybe string off some takedowns there, have a little bit of control time, just to be the more complete fighter, the more polished fighter, and to get the job done. He's very hungry, 3.5-inch reach advantage. He's a little bit taller. I love the frame for the division, and Emmers is a stud, and he deserves to get his hand raised in this fight. I don't like what they did to him in his last fight there. Emmers opened up on my bookie as a -345 favorite. He's now a -375 favorite. Would not be surprised if you see a -450 tag next to Emmers' name very soon. I think people are going to catch on to the difference in skill set right now. Again, Buzukja, a tough kid. I think he fought over in Japan even recently. He might have had a fight over in Japan recently. But he really hasn't fought anyone as of recently on the level of a Jamall Emmers, in my opinion. Again, Jamall Emmers, a sleeper fighter. He's going to make one run in this division, try to get a rank next to his name. And I think he could do it here. Give me Jamall Emmers to win a decision. Buzukja is shown to be very tough. Emmers will be piecing him up, though. Once again, in the lightweight division, we got Jared Gordon taking on Mark Madsen. Mark Madsen, now 39 years old. At one point in time, had a lot more hype behind his name. Then he had a couple of alarming performances that really took the stock away from him. He's coming off his first ever loss, which after the performance that he had against Clay Guida, it felt inevitable that we were going to start to see some L's next to his name. But he was able to go out there and get a victory over Vince Pichel. And then he was submitted by Grant Dawson. Don't get me started on Grant Dawson here, but Grant Dawson went out there, got the rear naked choke. Mark Madsen's striking has looked horrendous at times. He's very, very stiff. We understand that he's an Olympic medalist in Greco-Roman wrestling, which is, he uses the upper body type of grappling. I guess you would say, right? The Greco-Roman, you use a lot more of upper body techniques compared to diving in on the legs, singles and doubles. We don't really see him doing that a lot. He's more striking and then going into the clinch, and he's very strong, but he's a fighter that could really frustrate you. If you understand that he's an Olympic caliber wrestler and you're banking on him to go out there and exploit a fighter's takedown defense or something like that, he's not necessarily the guy to consistently do that. He's kind of untrustworthy there. And his striking is brutal to watch. When you have money behind him, it is brutal. I had money on him in that Clay Guida fight. I had him mixing a parlay, I believe, and he did edge that fight out. But boy, was I in the edge of my seat going crazy. And he's 39 years old. I still expect him to be in phenomenal shape. I mean, he's a true class act sportsman when it comes to that. When you're talking about an Olympic medalist, you guys understand that's what we're talking about here. But age still will start to catch up to you. And Jared Gordon is a well-rounded fighter. He's coming off that tough loss against Bobby Green where he was headbutted. Before that, you guys all know that he defeated Paddy Pimblett. Bobby Green has also looked phenomenal as of recently. So that even though Bobby Green was kind of working his magic before the headbutt even landed somewhat, I think that doesn't look that bad. And I think that Jared Gordon can be a stylistic, I don't know if I want to say a nightmare, but a tough stylistic matchup for Mark Madsen because Gordon can grapple. I think he can keep this fight at bay, and I think that he'll be the more smooth striker. He'll be working in the leg kicks, and he'll be landing his boxing shots just like he did on Paddy Pimblett. And I can even see him landing some big shots, some big hooks on Madsen as Madsen's all stiff, trying to walk forward and whatnot. Madsen will have a 4-inch reach advantage, has a pretty good frame, and I turned my back on Mark Madsen after that Clay Guida fight. So yes, I am on Jared Gordon. I think that Gordon is just a more complete and more well-rounded mixed martial artist here, and I don't really bank on the metal, the metal skills in the Greco-Roman wrestling field of Madsen to carry that much weight into this Gordon fight. Sorry. So yes, give me Jared Gordon. We could potentially see a big boxing shot landed by Jared Gordon in this fight. Now let's see what the betting line is real quick. So right now Gordon is a -190 on my bookie. Opened as a -200. Slight movement going towards Madsen's way. Somewhat understandable. People know about him being an Olympic caliber fighter. You see the 12-1 record. He's only taken one loss. But I think if you dive deeper in this fight, I think you would kind of understand. You really don't want to have any action trusted in a Mark Madsen unless you're getting ridiculous odds. And we're not talking about crazy value on a +145 dog line on Madsen. I would want nothing to do with that. And again, potentially Gordon gets the stoppage on Mark Madsen, with Madsen being so stiff and being there to be hit. And of course, I understand he's only lost one fight, and that was a rear naked choke submission. But I think it's the striking of Gordon's that will be a little bit more of a threat in this fight, especially if he starts to bring it and pick the pace up. I think he could land some big shots on Madsen. So give me Jared Gordon, potential finish in this fight. We'll see how in the flyweight division. This one should be a fun one. Now, this fight was supposed to take place on this recent season of Dana White's Contender Series. Unfortunately, the fight fell apart. Not necessarily unfortunate for Joshua Van because he got an instant shot in the octagon and was able to step in and get a victory over a proven veteran in his debut against Zalgis and Magulov. It was a split decision victory, but understand that it was not a split decision victory. It should have definitely been a unanimous decision. Joshua Van in complete control of that fight. I think that was some more sketchy judging going on there. Joshua Van looks very, very comfortable on the feet with his striking. Very polished striker, especially for a 22-year-old kid. I think you could kind of say the same thing about Kevin Borjas. Kevin Borjas, weathered the storm against his opponent, Victor Diaz, who was a fighter who's coming out of American Top Team. You had fighters like Hanat Moicano raving about him. Victor Diaz, a much more polished fighter with the jiu-jitsu background and phenomenal shape. Victor Diaz was a pretty big favorite there. And you got to love the way that Borjas weathered the storm in that fight and then landed some big shots towards the latter half of that fight and really showcased his striking. I think his striking is a little bit more raw. He's a fighter that has some good pop on his strikes, and he'll go out there and he's very aggressive. But I would say that Joshua Van is a little bit more polished of a striker, which is going to lead me to side with Joshua Van in this matchup. But, as we get to the betting line, I'll kind of explain to you where I stand on that. Both fighters have been proven to get knockouts in the cage. Joshua Van out of 8 victories, 5 knockouts. Borjas out of 9 victories, 8 knockouts. You look at Borjas' 1 loss. It's a respectable loss. I do have a good amount of respect for Renzo Mendez. He's a tough fighter, fighting over there in South America. Has a respectable resume. If I've watched tape on him, he's a good fighter. So not an alarming loss there. Joshua Van's loss, you got to go back to 2021, not that long ago, where he was submitted by Devon Jackson. So maybe you keep an eye on that, but understand that this isn't really a fight where you're going to see Borjas go out there and look to get a sub. I think this is a fight where they are going to be exchanging on the feet, and Borjas has a 4-inch reach advantage. Both been the same height. Let's pull up the betting line, and I'll kind of give you guys a better idea of what I'm thinking about this fight. I already know who I'm picking to win the fight, but I'll kind of understand. Or I'll kind of have you guys understand how I feel about the value as far as the value goes. Because Joshua Van is a minus 240 favorite. Okay, so that's where I'm going with this, and even touched a minus 263 favorite on my bookie. I think that line is way too high. I think that there's a lot of value on Borjas here. I think that this line should be much closer. Borjas has shown to be a very game opponent, a very tough fighter. And I do edge Van, just using that nice jab and using the nice polished striking to kind of edge Borjas, in that department. And maybe could lean up against him, maybe sneak in a takedown, maybe get on top of him. We've seen Borjas struggle at times. If you look at some of his earlier fights as well, getting taken down, but he's tough and he always works his way back up and is very live to make it a slugfest type of affair. And in that case, the fight could play out very closely. Okay, this could be a split decision type of fight. This could be a fight where they're just going at it. I think that this is a fight where they go to war, and it could play out a couple different ways, as they're throwing strikes at each other at a high volume. So why would you want to be taking a minus 240 line, a minus 263 line on a Joshua Van, who is still a very green fighter? Okay, I understand he had the big UFC debut, but he's a fighter that's 22 years old with just 9 pro fights. Okay, both these fighters are so young, so green. There's just a lot of moving parts. A lot of fighters make early mistakes in their careers, and even if Joshua Van maybe proves to be the superior fighter down the line, I mean, it's definitely reasonable that he has a hiccup here against a fighter in Borjas who goes out there and looks to crack and make it an aggressive type of a fight. So value on Borjas. I'm a little surprised to see the line where it is. And again, if you want to see what Kevin Borjas is about, pull up that last fight against Victor Diaz, who's a very, very polished game fighter, a very seasoned fighter coming out of American Top Team. Borjas defending takedowns, having a lot of success with the striking, has a granite chin, and Borjas, another, just want to mention, another talented Peruvian fighter. Peru has been putting out a lot of talent in the lower weight classes, and you could add Borjas' name to that list. Give me Joshua Van via decision. Matt, the steamroller Frevola taking on Benoit Saint-Denis. Did you guys know, or did you guys realize that BSD is just 27 years old? I mean, he's still very young. He looks like he's like a 31-year-old, almost primed fighter. He has so much room for growth. He's been on an absolute tear, does so many things well. I mean, I guess we'll kick off just raving about Benoit Saint-Denis here for a second. When you date back to his lone loss, which was against Zaleski dos Santos, even in that loss, he showcased how mentally tough he is, how durable he is, the amount of damage that he took in that fight, continued to march forward. All right, so you understand that he had that intangible in him. If a fight, goes to the deep waters, Benoit Saint-Denis is going to be a guy that just continues to march forward. But as of recently, he's just showcased that skill for skill. He goes out there and breaks these guys down. Fights out of the southpaw stance, throws this extremely powerful back leg kick. Right, he works that body kick excuse me, not a leg kick. He works the body kick from the back of his stance so well. Just blast through guys' guards. They're scared that he's going to mix it up and go to the head, and then he'll just absolutely take out your body. I expect to see a bunch of that in this fight. I think he'll be looking to work Frevola's body. Now, Frevola has some dangerous power in his hands. He'll look to counter with some big shots there. But here's the thing. Benoit Saint-Denis is a fighter that we've seen perform in the welterweight division. He's since come down to the lightweight division. He's going to have a little bit of a size advantage here. I think he's going to have a little bit of a skill advantage as well. I'm a big fan of Matt Frevola's, currently ranked the 14th lightweight fighter in the world. Follows me on IG. You guys know I interviewed him here on the channel. Nothing but respect for Frevola. I'm actually, a big fan of Frevola's, I would say. Just, I like his personality and everything. But when we're talking skill for skill, he's had some alarming performances. It's hard for me to forget that Marco Polo Reyes fight where he was starched. I believe that wasn't his debut, where he was just cracked and put out. Terrence McKinney just recently put him out. And even in some of the fights where he survived, we've seen him take a lot of damage early on. So his striking defense is a little suspect. And Benoit Saint-Denis has just been going out here picking dudes apart. Just knocked out Thiago Moises, submitted Ismail Bonfim. You guys know I'm high in Bonfim. Can't talk about how he performed as well because, again, filming this Friday morning, I don't know how he performed this past card as of right now. So, but I am high in the Bonfim brothers. I went out there and knocked out Gabriel Miranda, submitted Nicholas Stoles. Not the highest caliber of opponent, but just understand that, with the move down to the lightweight division as well, Benoit Saint-Denis is a fighter that is going to have a rank next to his name very soon. And this is a fighter that's going to wreak havoc in this division. And it's perfect timing to have a fighter representing France the way he does, as that Napoleon movie is going to be coming out. That's a movie that I'm very much looking forward to watching. I don't really get hyped up for a lot of movies these days. I saw the trailer for it, though, and that movie looks dope. Okay, so I'm excited about that. And you guys know, I think it was Joaquin Phoenix or whatever his name is. He's a phenomenal actor. You got the Gladiator vibes. I believe it's the same director from Gladiator. That's going to be a phenomenal movie. And a lot of people say that Benoit Saint-Denis actually has lineage directly linked back to Napoleon. So I don't know if you guys heard that or not, but if you didn't, you're hearing it here first. And I think you guys know which way I'm going here. I think Benoit Saint-Denis is so tough. He's going to march forward. Frevola is going to meet him. And I'm sensing an under in this fight, and I'm sensing Benoit Saint-Denis gets the finish here. I think he clips Frevola with a big shot, breaks him down, follows him down to the canvas, and hits some follow-up shots there as the ref jumps in, okay? Big fan of Frevola's. He's dangerous as well. If Benoit Saint-Denis thinks it's going to be a walk in the park and lacks defensively, he can run into some trouble, but I don't think that'll be the case. He has a nice guard. He'll be on his P's and Q's there, and he will be the fighter that lands that bigger shot. He has a lot of things going his way here. So I am on Benoit Saint-Denis to get the finish over Matt Frevola and to be a ranked fighter in the lightweight division with a lot of exciting matchups to be made with him in the future. Let's go take a look at the betting line here, where we will see Benoit Saint-Denis as a -210 on my bookie. Opened up as a -204, crept down to a -220, kind of went back the other way. So not necessarily trending, just to continuously, slam that direction, with the way that it's going back. Maybe we don't see BSD as a -240, 250, which initially I was kind of thinking that would be the case. When I saw that line trending that way, I thought it could just continuously go that way. I think we'll see it break down a little bit more that direction, but maybe not a 250. Maybe we see Benoit settle in like as a -225 favorite. Maybe we see a little respect put on Matt Frevola's name. Nothing but respect to my boy, the Steamroller, but I'm just not feeling him in this spot here. BSD has so much momentum coming behind him. He's so young. He's only going to look better in this fight, and he's only going to look better and better over the next 2-3 years, and he's going to be a fighter that's going to be a dark horse in the division, in my opinion. So give me Benoit Saint-Denis via knockout TKO. I'm going to say he gets that finish in the first round. Pat Sabatini taking on Diego Lopes in the featherweight division. Two stud grapplers here. This fight will be so fun to watch if it goes down to the mat. And it should. There's some potential that it doesn't if this fight plays out similarly to what we saw in Pat Sabatini's fight versus Damon Jackson, where he gets clipped early on. The fight could end very, very quickly on the feet. Diego Lopes throws those kind of attacks at you early. He looks to throw the kitchen sink at you from the moment the bell rings. So there's potential it doesn't. But I'm really crossing my fingers and hoping that we see these guys roll around on the mat a little bit. I believe both of these fighters, Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belts. Pat Sabatini has a little bit more of a wrestling type of Jiu-Jitsu style. Lopes, very tricky off his back, throwing all types of attacks off his back. I would say that the later this fight goes, there could be an edge for Pat Sabatini to kind of rely on the wrestling to kind of, steal some of those rounds, right? And he'll be sweaty. He can avoid the sub. But, I don't say that necessarily completely convinced, because if you remember Pat Sabatini's fight against the Canadian in Tristan Connolly, that was a fight where he was up on the scorecards the first 2 rounds, and he lost that 3rd round. All right. Since then, he pulled off a submission over Jamall Emmers, caught him with that tricky sub. I believe it was a heel hook or some type of knee bar. Caught him there. Took out Tucker Lutz, TJ Laramie, really relying on the grappling. Just submitted Lucas Almeida, more of a Muay Thai type of fighter there. And again, we mentioned the Damon Jackson loss where he was clipped early on, which that could be a little bit of an alarming performance, because again, Diego Lopes is going to go out there, throw the kitchen sink at him from the moment the bell rings, and I think there is potential he gets a knockout there. Maybe he lands something wild. Maybe Pat Sabatini rushes to his grappling, and then Lopes snatches up a sub, as we just saw him do against Gavin Tucker. I mean, that performance that he had against Gavin Tucker was phenomenal. Just bum rushed him, and Tucker fell right into that trap. Now, remember, the UFC debut performance he had against Movsar Evlovoyov, that was a fight he took on short notice, and definitely overachieved in that fight when you understand how good of a fighter Movsar is, and just how competitive that fight was. He's just been grinding it out on the regional scene before that, and he has proven to be a very dangerous fighter. Okay, 10 submission victories out of his 22 professional fights, a lot of them coming in the first round, 6 knockouts as well. He's a fight finisher. Okay, so do understand that. And as much of a fan as I am of Pat Sabatini's, and as much as I understand that he can exploit fighters that don't have high-level grappling, Diego Lopes has high-level grappling, and he's a fighter that's getting more and more comfortable with his striking, because he knows if he slips up and a fighter goes to take him down, that he could use his jiu-jitsu to also impose his will. So I think Diego Lopes is going to open up in this fight early on, and I have a feeling he's going to land some big shots. And even if he doesn't land, I know his cardio is high caliber, and Pat Sabatini is going to just continuously have threats thrown his way. It's not going to be a walk in the park. Give me Diego Lopes to win this fight. Okay, he has almost a 3-inch reach here, a 2.5-inch reach advantage. He's a taller fighter, has a nice frame for the division, and I'm taking the dog here. Let you guys know, I know he is a dog already. He is a plus 105 dog on my bookie. Open as a plus 110. A little bit of action coming in on his way. I expect that this line will close to be a little bit more of an even line. I do. The more people understand and remember what Diego Lopes is all about, I think that the line will close more evenly. Pat Sabatini has been known to come in as a pretty big favorite. It's understandable, because he's a fighter that if you don't finish, he's a high-level jiu-jitsu guy, and he has a very he has a lot of pressure that he brings to the table. He gets on top of these fighters, and he controls them, and there's definitely that type of route that he can go. But Lopes will continue to throw attacks. He'll work to get back to his feet, and I think he can land a big shot. I'm going to say Diego Lopes gets a finish in this fight somewhere in rounds 1 or 2. I'm going to say the finish happens, and give me the wild boy, Diego Lopes. He's a stud. I really love watching him fight. I love the Bieber haircut that he brings in to the cage. It's just, he has a funny look, and he's a cool dude, and I like his vibes. Give me him to get the finish in this fight within rounds 1 or 2 early on in this fight. 2 ranked fighters squaring off here on the main card. Jéssica Andrade, the number 5th ranked strawweight fighter, also ranked the number 6th flyweight fighter as well. But this fight taking place in the strawweight division. You guys know Jéssica Andrade has been jumping around weight classes forever, even starting her UFC career off in the bantamweight division, which is crazy to think as she's so short and whatnot. But Mackenzie Dern, the number 7th ranked strawweight fighter, 30 years old, still showing a lot of growth in her overall game, using her striking as of recently. Really feeling comfortable to go tit for tat with top level fighters. Just had that main event victory over Angela Hill, where she really showcased that. Thought that was a great showcase for her. I could also be harsh on her if you want to talk about her fights prior to that. I saw her fight against Tisha Torres live. I was cage side for that fight. I was down low for that fight. Had big action on Tisha Torres. I am not saying this in any type of biased way. I've rewatched that fight. Tisha Torres should have got the nod in that fight. I truly believe that. I feel that was a robbery. Not a complete robbery. It wasn't a complete landslide like she just dominated. But if you actually break the rounds down. Tecia Torres was getting the better of the striking, and she should have got the nod there. That was a bad look for the judges once again. And just, Tecia Torres, a polished fighter, but I believe Jéssica Andrade does a lot of things that Torres does even better. Andrade has more power on the feet. Her boxing's nasty. She can use her wrestling defense to keep this fight standing. I don't think she wants to go down to the mat with the jiu-jitsu ace in Dern. You guys know, of course, Dern, that is her bread and butter. 7 submissions out of her 13 victories, more than half of them coming by way of sub. And I mean, she was like a Brazilian jiu-jitsu prodigy, right? Her dad being one of the big names in the game, training her since she was very young. Jéssica Andrade has had some hiccups down on the mat before. Just was submitted by Tatiana Suarez, but you guys know I believe Suarez is the uncrowned champ. Jan, she was knocked out against Jan. You guys know Jan is a very high caliber fighter who just had a victory over Dern as well. Erin Blanchfield submitted at Jéssica Andrade, so once again submitted. Just understand that we're talking about the best of the best as we list these losses for Andrade. Even some of these fights she took on short notice. She's just been so game. I think that if you just look at the 3 losses and say, oh yeah, she can't get a W, you're not really fully understanding what's going on with these fights. She's just a game opponent that's showing up facing the best of the best, okay? And don't forget what she was doing before those fights, right? Taking out Lauren Murphy, submitting Amanda Lemos in the first round, knocking out Cynthia Calvillo. She was knocked out against Valentina Shevchenko, again, fighting a fighter that is much naturally larger than her. Before that, she knocked out Caitlin Chikogian. Caitlin Chikogian, a fighter that very rarely loses, okay? That she had the loss to Rose Namajunas and Weili Zhang. But again, look at the level of competition that we're talking about. All her losses are against, like, literally the best fighters out. Like, literally, you go one by one. You're talking about the best fighters, like 1 through 5, 1 through 6, okay? Before that, you remember she slammed Rose in her head, knocked out Karolina Kovacevic, defeated Tecia Torres. We just talked about Tecia. Defeated Claudia Gadelha, lost to Joanna Jędrzejczyk when Joanna was still doing her thing. Victory over Angela Hill as well. Knocked out Jessica Penne. I mean, I'm a big Jéssica Andrade fan, and she's still only 32 years old. I know she's as hungry as ever. I know that she's going to be game for this opportunity here, and I'm taking her to get the job done here. You guys know I've been raving about Andrade for a long time. I've been a huge fan of hers when you're talking women's mixed martial arts. I love the way she bounces around weight classes, the way she goes out there, lands big, powerful shots, knocks girls out, rains down nasty ground and pound. And Mackenzie Dern, a talented jiu-jitsu player, just a little flimsy out there and just not really my cup of tea. I mean, she's a cool chick, whatever, but I'm an Andrade type of a fan, if you guys know what I'm saying here when I'm watching these 2 fighters. So I'm hoping and I'm picking that Jéssica Andrade goes out here, gets the redemption in this fight, and lands some big shots and shakes things up, potentially gets that knockout over Mackenzie Dern. I'm not telling you guys to bank on it. It's a women's strawweight fight. Dern's striking defense has been looking better and whatnot, but Andrade has that kind of power to shake things up. But I think that she could at least get enough respect with her striking and keep this fight standing and do enough to get this fight done when we go to the judges' scorecards, okay? So give me Jéssica Andrade. I definitely feel there's more value on her plus 160 line. As you see her on my bookie as a plus 160 right now. She opened as a plus 153, so we see action coming in on Dern. And it's understandable. She's coming off a main event performance where she looked very good against Angela Hill, hurt Angela Hill on the feet, took almost every round in that fight. Essentially, right? Almost at least 4 rounds. And she's been looking good. She's young, and we're going to see more growth from her game. And then you got to also wonder Jéssica Andrade's mindset taking all these losses. Is she going to be questioning herself in there? But I think that she's just such a game fighter that she'll step right back in there expecting to do what she's done when she's had her best performances. Just a 1-inch reach disadvantage, about 2.5 inch height disadvantage. She's a little undersized, but not as bad as we've seen her in other fights. Okay, she's a wrecking ball, and I hope she shows up there. So give me Jéssica Andrade. I think she potentially lands a big shot, but don't bank on that. And but she lands a good amount of big shots to take a decision here, and she dictates the pace a little bit. All right, throwing those heavy wide hooks. Maybe she cracks the chin of Dern. This fight is ridiculous. You guys know I've been raving about both of these fighters for years. I've been so high on them. I mean, these were the 2 fighters that I wanted to see Jon Jones eventually face off with, right? Complete fighters that are just on a whole nother level. in my opinion, than an aged Stipe Miocic. I think Sergey Pavlovich would starch Stipe Miocic in similar fashion to what we saw in Francis Ngannou's last fight with Stipe. Tom Aspinall, I think he would do the same. Okay, I think he really would. I think he would find the mark on Stipe's chin as well. Both these fighters just starting to get primed up. As I like to say, Tom Aspinall, just 30 years old. You're going to see him really cruising to the prime of his career here over the next 3 years. Sergey Pavlovich, you could say the same thing. Pavlovich had that one lone loss against Alistair Overeem. I believe that was his UFC debut against one of the all-time greats. He had a hiccup there where he was knocked out in the first round. It was his UFC debut. He had a lot of things going up against him. But if you just understand the caliber of fighter that he is right now. I saw him fight live. I was very low for that event too, where he went out there and knocked out Tai Tuivasa. When you're in the cage and you just see him wreaking havoc the way he does when you're there cage side, it's ridiculous, okay? I could only imagine watching him fight like in the UFC Apex, literally sitting cage side. That would be ridiculous. This guy's an absolute beast. The whole crowd, was flipping out as Tai Tuivasa came out. And then once the fight started and Pavlovich was just putting on a clinic, everybody was just in awe in the arena. I swear you could hear a pin drop. People were like, holy crap. I mean, this guy's an animal. When you understand how dangerous he is with his striking, with the power that he possesses, when you understand, which a lot of you guys don't understand, the level of wrestling that he actually has, because he hasn't been able to showcase that. He's extensively been working over at American Top Team with Steve Mocco and some of the greats there for a while now. You saw Curtis Blades not even being able to have a chance to get that fight down to the mat. He flicked off that one attempt like it was nothing. If you want to have a question mark maybe into his cardio in a 5-round fight, that's understandable, right? Maybe he doesn't look to be the same fighter in the 4th and 5th round. But I mean, as far as the physical shape that he comes into the fight with him, he looks to be in phenomenal shape. I don't think you'll have too much of an issue there. But yes, you would have a reasonable argument when you take a look at all his recent fights, right? First round, dating all the way back to a 5-round fight that he had against Mikhail Makatin over at Fight Night Global 68. So at least he did go to a 5-round fight there. But yes, the overwhelming amount of his fights end very quickly. But I'm telling you guys now, I think that this is a fighter that is just a world-class fighter that will be in good shape. I mean, he doesn't carry any flab on him, and this guy's lean. I think his cardio will be good. Same could be said about Tom Aspinall. I think that this is a world-class fighter that will look sharp late in this fight. But if it goes there, I mean, how do you expect this fight to go late, man, with the way that these guys fight, man? These guys are going to meet in the middle. They're going to clash. And, I don't think this fight goes very long. All right. And as high as I've been on Tom Aspinall, and I think that Tom Aspinall has an edge with the jiu-jitsu. He's been training jiu-jitsu for a long time. And if this fight does go late, I think that it will favor Tom Aspinall, especially if this fight touches the mat. But as I just said before, I don't think it's going to go late. When you have the wrecking ball that Sergey Pavlovich is, running across the cage as soon as the bell rings and just landing these heavy boxing shots, and Tom Aspinall is a fighter that's fully willing to engage in that type of fight as well. We saw it in the Curtis Blades fight before he injured himself. I mean, he'll sit right in the middle of the cage and he'll look to throw down, and Pavlovich is going to land a big shot, and Pavlovich is going to put Tommy Boy to sleep. All right? That's what I'm telling you guys right now. I've been saying it for a while. This dude, Sergey Pavlovich, is going to be the heavyweight kingpin. I know some of you guys get upset, so I try not to go there for all you John Jones fans. Sergey Pavlovich will knock John Jones out, okay? In the first round. I believe he knocks out anybody. I would love to see him versus Francis Ngannou. Francis Ngannou obviously looking phenomenal as of recently. That's a fight where you never know what's going to happen. I would bank Pavlovich even over Ngannou, but obviously not saying that with a lot of confidence because Francis is a beast. I think one of those guys would get the knockout there, but Tom Aspinall, I love the jiu-jitsu skills. I love the sleek movement and the good boxing, kickboxing skills and all that. Pavlovich is just a little bit of a different animal, man. These guys are going to clash. Pavlovich is going to be the fighter that lands that big shot. Let's go take a look at the betting line. Sergey Pavlovich right now is a -105, an ever so slight underdog. Not even really. It's a pick'em line. There's a slight lean on Tom Aspinall. I think people are thinking if this fight goes later into the fight that's where Aspinall will have that edge where he could also hold his own early on. But understand, this fight's probably likely to end early on. And when you go that route, I think you got to favor Pavlovich in that type of scenario. First round KO for Sergey Pavlovich. He becomes the intern heavyweight champion of the world. And I don't know what will be next for him. Maybe they set that. I don't know what will be next. Eventually, I think that Jones is going to be out for over a year or whatnot. As he had a pretty serious injury, so eventually he's just going to be. I don't know how that's going to work out. I don't see Jones returning to fight either of these guys personally. I think Jones just wants that legacy victory over Miocic, and I think Miocic wants the same thing. I don't think that either of those fighters want to see these guys. Maybe they rise to the occasion. They show up as these guys build the name for themselves now. If Pavlovich has that belt, maybe Jones, mans up and does it. Maybe Miocic does it. I mean, I don't know how that would all work out. Miocic needs to win first, but so we got some moving parts in the division, but I don't think that those all-time greats in Miocic and Jones want to see the new breed. This is the new breed of the heavyweight division, all right? You guys are going to see this upcoming weekend. So after we get to witness the co-main event, we'll be jumping out of our seats, going crazy. I mean, that's a headliner any day of the week. Again, two of the highest caliber heavyweights combined that we've ever seen in the cage. I mentioned the JDS for Cain Velasquez fight. You guys can think of some other great ones if you want to comment them below. After we witness that, we get to see the vacant light heavyweight title on the line between Yuri Prochazka and Alex Pereira, a fight that is so magical, has such a magical background when you understand that Yuri took the belt from Glover Teixeira, Glover Teixeira being Alex Pereira's mentor and all that. Remember now, so this title, Yuri Prochazka had to vacate the title because of the injury after he defeated Glover Teixeira. Then Magomed Ankalaev takes on Jan Blachowicz. That was supposed to be for the vacant title. We had the draw. You guys still know, I believe, Magomed Ankalaev is the uncrowned light heavyweight champ. Had another hiccup, another weird situation, but he will be the champ. Okay, so Jamall Hill gets an opportunity to fight for the belt, defeats Glover Teixeira, then he gets injured. The title is vacated. Here we are. And this is such a fun fight. Now, Alex Pereira, he just made his debut in the division against another fighter that we just talked about, Jan Blachowicz. I thought that he slightly lost that fight, okay? You guys know I thought that Blachowicz edged that fight out with the grappling. I thought Blachowicz lost that fight just based on his demeanor, the way he looked exhausted and whatnot. But if you actually were breaking down the fight, strike for strike, control time and all that, I thought Blachowicz edged it out. I won't argue with you if you thought Pereira won the fight. Maybe he did land some damaging shots as well. But one thing I say for sure is that was a very impressive performance by Pereira, moving up in weight, taking on a former champion in Jan Blachowicz, and just the way that he never was out on himself, continuously trying to work back up and land those big shots. I think that he is a legitimate, serious lightweight contender, right? I mean, that's why they're throwing him right in the mix. Former middleweight champion. This guy isn't a fraud that just stylistically matched up with Izzy and snagged the belt. This is now a fighter that does it all and does the striking as good as anybody in all of MMA. And that's where he's really going to butter up his bread, right? Because Yuri Prochazka is a fighter that does so many things well. He's so unorthodox. He's a crazy fighter and all that. But defensively, he is there to be hit, right? We saw Glover Teixeira land so many shots on him in those wars. Alex Pereira going to be a lot more likely to land that fight-ending shot. Now, that being said, Alex Pereira has also shown, not on the same level, but he has also shown to have some defensive flaws, and he's there to be hit as well. Of course, reference the third match against Izzy, or however you want to spin that, not third or second, whatever, with the kickboxing matches. But, he got overzealous there. If he does that and goes in with that killer instinct against a guy like Yuri Prochazka, don't be surprised if Prochazka lands a spinning elbow and knocks out Pereira. This fight has all the makings to be one of the most entertaining fights that we've ever seen. And this is a fight you could never predict you're going to see something crazy occur. But if there was ever a matchup where you just feel there's going to be something magical that lands, just something where you're jumping out of your seat, this is the fight. But I'll take the more safe route, and I'll still say we're going to see a spectacular knockout, but I think it's going to be something a little bit more basic. And I think we're going to see the left hook of Pereira crack Prochazka, and I think he's going to follow him up and finish him in this fight. And I think that's going to happen in the first two rounds. I don't think this is a fight that goes on too long. We know that Yuri Prochazka thrives in those wars. I just don't think he can avoid the sniper skills of Alex Pereira. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Yuri shows up and takes this fight. I mean, he's an absolute animal. I don't need to go into his resume. You guys know what kind of guy we're talking about here. He's a freak. He's an absolute freak, and he's going to be looking to land some shots from some awkward angles. But I'll take the polished kickboxer in Alex Pereira. And I can't bank on Yuri to go out there and use a heavy grappling attack and go to the basics and just try to exploit maybe the takedown defense of Pereira. Which even if he does, we saw it gassed out Jan Blachowicz. It can gas him out if he goes that route, and Pereira can capitalize on him late in the fight as well. So yes, I am on Alex Pereira to get a knockout within the first 2 rounds. I think that left hook lands. He's filled out so nicely in this division. He's looking thick. The takedown defense is getting better and better. The get-up game's looking better and better. I think Alex Pereira is now going to be a fighter that has held belts in 2 weight classes, which is, that's not something that very many fighters can mention or say. Alex Pereira right now is a minus 140 favorite, opened as a minus 142, a little bit of movement. He was a minus 133, some action coming in on Prochazka. Now he's a minus 140, coming back a little bit his way. I think that this fight will stay pretty close. I think that Pereira will just be that slight favorite, but people are going to have respect for the former champion of Prochazka. Some people may think that he's the more legitimate light heavyweight fighter with his frame and whatnot, but I think as they see Pereira on the scales and they see him really settling into this division, they're going to understand that that's not necessarily the case. Pereira is a light heavyweight fighter. He will have a 1.5 inch reach advantage, height advantage, Both men 80-inch reaches. Pereira with the more technically sound striking to get the job done there. And if you're looking to bet this fight, you're looking at unders, you're looking at knockout props, or you could even take Pereira straight up on that money line, minus 140 or better, potentially. Monitor the line, and it's not a steep line there. Alex Pereira to become the light heavyweight champion of the world in the main event. All right, guys, as we wrap up this video, I want to especially thank all of you guys that hung around with me to the end of this video. It means so much to me, guys. Please like the video if you haven't already, or subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. I mean, if you're listening to me talking the mic for this long, it's probably worth it for you to subscribe. But if you could like the video also, it means so much to me. Got to leave you guys with some closing thoughts. I'll throw this out to you guys as we come to the end of the year here, get to the holiday season and all that. I know the vast majority of people that are listening to this video are young, able-bodied men. And I'm going to say part of what motivates me to kind of go down this avenue here, just listen to Tim Kennedy on the Joe Rogan Experience. You guys got to go check that out. I have so much admiration for what Tim Kennedy does. I mean, that guy is just a freak, and I mean that in a positive sense. The guy is such an amazing human being. I couldn't shine his shoes at all, but I mean, at least I have this little platform here, a couple thousand of you guys listening. I'll just throw this out there. Maybe it could help some of you guys, realize what I'm saying here. But, as we get into the holiday season and just really day to day for the rest of your lives, man, you should be out just, doing what you can do to help the community. And that doesn't mean spending time feeding homeless at a shelter. I know you guys are busy. You guys got things going on. But at the very least, man, just stay able-bodied and keep yourself prepared to defend innocent people. When you're out and about, keep an eye at what's going on. If you see someone that seems not to be a good person, because there are people that aren't good out there, man. I had a neighbor across the street. These people, nobody liked them in my neighborhood. They had the cops over by the house all the time. Everyone knew what was up. Nobody wanted them around here because it wasn't that people were judging them. It was based on the nuisance of what was constantly going on. Classless, yelling stupid crap all the time. They were always nice to me for whatever reason. Maybe it's the way I look or whatnot. They were always cool with me. And, I kept my distance and whatnot. They want to borrow some tools from me as I'm in my garage as they're making their move, which I really was happy they were moving, right? I was very happy. I was like, shit, I don't got to deal with that shit no more. You let them borrow some tools. They usually brought it back. I had a feeling there was a good chance they'd borrow some tools and disappear as they were taking some things apart in their bed, because I knew they were gone by the end of that day. What do you think those people did? They left and saw the house later, and that night I saw it was vacant. Everything was out front. I knew they took my tools. I didn't care they took my tools because I'm so happy they were gone, and it was kind of a departing gift. All right, I got money. I'll buy some more tools. They need it that bad. They can keep it. I don't got to see them over there anymore. But those are the type of people that are scattered around in our community, but the vast majority are good people, man. I deal with such good people on a daily basis, and people that would do good things for you. And as an able-bodied man, just be out there, keep an eye on people that aren't good, and just be willing to protect your fellow people, and just keep an eye out, man. Keep an eye out. All right, we'll talk more about that another time. I won't go on too much. This video has been going on forever, but you guys have a duty, man. All right, take care of yourselves, eat good. You know, you don't got to be ripped and shredded, but you got to be in at least decent enough shape to take care of your family, okay? You can't be a fat slob out there, guys, man. Take care of yourselves. You got to be able to defend your fellow people, man. You have a responsibility, all right? If not your community, at least your family, all right? You don't want something to happen and then you're kicking yourself and you know that you're not really able, or you haven't put in enough time to really be prepared to defend yourself, man. Put some time into all that to be an able-bodied man that's willing and capable of defending in a major way, all right? I think if we all do that, it makes the country a better place for all my fellow Americans. And whatever country you're in, makes your country a better place too. I know some of your countries, you're not even able to defend yourself in certain ways, but we won't go too deep down that rabbit hole. Much love and respect to all you guys out there, all right? I'll leave you guys with that. Catch me on IG and Twitter because I'm going to be putting a lot of content out and keep up to date with me as we go into this big card here, all right? It's going to be exciting. Hope you guys all have a blast. Hope you guys make a bunch of money on this card. If you want to work with me, reach out to me and shoot me a message, and we'll continue to string off these profitable events. All right, guys? Signing out. Teller.
Welcome to the show. This the MMA fortune teller. Yeah.
The MMA fortune teller.
The teller.